Hi, welcome to the Corner of Knit and Tea, episode 278. My name is Laura. I'm also known as Fluffy K on Ravelry, Fluffy Kara on Instagram and Twitter. I blog over at the cornerofknitandtea.com, and that's where this episode and every episode show notes will be. I have an Etsy shop called Corner of Knit and Tea where I sell my handspun yarns, and we have a Ravelry group called the Corner of Knit and Tea. Hi, how are you? It is Monday, May 18th. I hope that I find you healthy and well today and still surviving in this strange new world. We are doing okay. We are still at home. The city has opened a little bit this week as of today. And so some stores are open again, including the local yarn store. As for us, we are still staying indoors and not venturing out so much. We still have cases, and so we're going to continue sticking at home as much as we can. We are still ordering in lots of takeout or, picking up food at curbside so that we can support our favorite places. I'm still ordering more yarn than I need to support my favorite stores. And we are just hanging in there. We are lucky, and so far our friends and family are healthy. I hope the same for you. As the weeks go on, I know less and less what to say. Suffice it to say, I hope you and your family are healthy and surviving and making your way through this with as much grace as you possibly can. That is what I am striving for, at least for myself. So I don't have anything really exciting to report. I am kind of excited because this upcoming weekend is Memorial Day, which is a holiday weekend in the United States. We recognize it on Monday, the 25th, and that's the day that we honor our fallen heroes, those who have served in the military and perished. And so that makes it an introspective weekend. It is also sort of unofficially in the US the weekend that kicks off summer. So, and I will be off both Friday and Monday, which is kind of nice. My boss gave us Friday off as well. So I think a 4-day weekend will be nice. It occurs to me that we haven't really taken any time off in the last few months, mostly because there hasn't been anywhere to go, and there still isn't. But a few days off from work, I'll use them to work, to read, and craft, and just have several days where I don't have to, show up and be present and work for my clients. And I think the mental break will be nice. So let's get into the episode. Today I am drinking more of an autumn tea. It is Harney & Sons Cranberry Autumn, a black tea with cranberry and orange. It just sounded appealing. Today is not a cold day, but it's a little bit chilly. It's in the 50s with a breeze. So that's not super cold. It's, it's springy here. But it was a little chilly, and so I decided I wanted kind of a warm, spicy tea, and I am drinking it in my tea time mug. So this was a mug from Anthropology, and it makes me laugh. So, yeah. That's good, although that's very hot. So let's talk about the knits. I actually have 2 finished knits to share with you this week. The first is a shawl that I was knitting as a sample for Zen Yarn Garden. It is the Breathe and Hope shawl by Casa Pinka, and it is the shawl that Casa Pinka released this year to go with local yarn store day. So it is a 2-color shawl, and I knit it in 2 colors of Zen Yarn Garden in their super fine fingering. I knit it in 2 colors from their Met Art Walk series. They do colors that are inspired by artwork, and this was inspired by a Degas painting at the Met, left over from Vogue New York this year when they went to Vogue Live in January, which feels like ages ago. The Degas painting was dance class, and it had kind of browns and reds and kind of cream colors, and then just a little bit of a kind of minty greeny blue, and they paired it with a frosted teal colorway. So this is the shawl. It is an asymmetrical triangle, and the shawl makes use of some brioche techniques, kind of knit one below stitches and other combinations to make a fairly textured two-color wrap. So we start at the corner and move down through the two colors, and then there is that vertical section. And I am pleased to say that despite my worries last week that it would be less flexible or that the areas would have different widths and make the wrap look funny, I am pleased to say that with a nice blocking and a little eucalan, they lay nice and flat, and the texture really is drapier than when I knit it. So I am pleased, I'm very pleased with that. So we had the vertical section and then a slightly different brioche section and another vertical section and a slightly different brioche section and vertical, and then our last couple sections, which are brioche and vertical, and then a little bit of ribbing and a fun kind of, it's not quite a picot bind off, it has kind of like baubles almost. It is a sufficiently large shawl. It is not super deep. It is a little bit skinnier, but it is fairly wide. This is more than my wingspan and should be a lovely, lovely shawl just to wear either bandana style or scarf style. And this is out of Zen Yarn Garden's 100% superfine merino base, which is a fingering weight. It is super, super squishy. Only caveats with the pattern. I actually ran short of yarn. The pattern calls for 2 skeins of fingering weight yarn. In the original, the fingering weight that Casapinka used, they were actually 400 and I want to say 60-ish yards per skein. Nevertheless, she marked the pattern at 800 yards. I went through and looked, and there seems to be a wide range of yardage used. I found people who finished the shawl in 750 yards. I found people who finished it in 850 or 900. So there seems to be a very wide range. I would say proceed with caution on this one. I ended up omitting about 5 rows at the end, which is not terrible. But seriously, when I say I had very little left, this is all I had left of the frosted teal. That's probably 2 meters. I could not even, I finished 1 row across. I could not even finish the return row. So it is kind of a single row. And then I just had this little bit left at the end of the other color. Altogether, this is 4 grams of yarn. That's out of 200 grams. So, and I did weigh, and I had the right amount of yarn for the I had the 200 grams full, so I was not going to make it. So I will just say proceed with caution. You may have to eliminate a few rows at the end. I don't think the pattern was harmed for it. I just eliminated a few in the vertical section, and I had to eliminate one extra row before bind off. So it's not terrible, but know that if you start with 400 yards, I did not gauge swatch. I did use the needles called for, so potentially my gauge is slightly off, which could have resulted in that. I just want you to know I don't often swatch for shawls. Anyway, so really, really pretty colors. I will take some photos so you can see. It produces a very mottled shawl. I have definitely seen ones that are more and less contrasty. This one has less of a contrast, definitely. But it was a decent knit. It knit up really quickly. It is well written. And so I can recommend the pattern if you're looking for something fun to start with. So that is the Breathe and Hope Shawl by Casapinka, and there should be kits available for this shortly. So next on my needles and next finish is a hat, and I showed you this last week. This is the Untangling Knots hat by Justine Lorkowska. It is a free pattern on Ravelry, and I knit it in the Treasure Goddess Treasure DK in the colorway Davy Jones Locker, which is this dark navy blue. This is just a fun cabled hat. You can see that it is a semi-solid yarn. I don't think it distracts too much from the cables in person. It might light a little bit on the camera. The pattern is for a very slouchy hat, and I actually ended up skipping a few rows on this one, on one of the charts, because it just was getting crazy long, but it is beautiful and it makes for a nice slouchy hat. I think this will be wonderful. I am donating this to Hat Not Hate, so I put a little label on it, and I also really like the decreases up at the top. It makes a really nice, it's a little hard to see again in the semi-solid, but it just it really comes together nicely at the top, and a good decrease at the crown is very nice. So that is Untangling Knots. It comes in one size. Again, I used DK weight yarn the needles called for, and that is off the needles and ready to go in the donation box. So I am pleased with that. Let's talk about what's on my needles. So this week I decided to pick up again and work on my rippled, I'm calling it my rippled not so crop top. That is the Ripple crop top by Jessie Made Designs, and I am knitting it in some yarn that I purchased at a local fiber festival from Yarn Geek Fibers. And it is her merino cashmere nylon base, and it is in the Vonda and McIntyre, who is a science fiction writer, colorway. All of Yarn Geek's colorways are named after geeky women. Again, this is turquoise with splotches of purple and pink and white. And I have been working on this for a while, and then I had taken just a bit of a pause on it as I moved on to some other things. I decided to pick it back up this week and do some more work on it. It's at kind of an awkward point to show you, and lots of yarn tails and various things. However, I split for the front and back. This is a pattern that's knit in the round from the bottom up, and I finished the two fronts, so that is kind of the V-neck with the two fronts, and I am working on the back currently, and I have a few more inches to go, probably 4-ish. I don't know, I didn't measure last night, but I know how many rows I need to go. So as soon as I am done with that, I can connect at the shoulders, and then I will decide on the sleeves. The Ripple crop top, like I said, is by Jessie Made Designs, and it is designed to be a a crop top. And I decided that I did not want mine quite so cropped, so I went ahead and knit extra length. I believe for my size, I was supposed to knit 5.5 inches, maybe 6 inches before I split for the sleeves, and I ended up knitting between 10 and 11. I suspect it still may be a skosh shorter than I really like. I measured a sweater that I really like the length of, and that is 13 all the inches from the underarm down, although of course that probably falls mid-hip, so this will definitely fall at my waist. The Ripple crop top also calls for short little cap sleeves, and I have not decided whether I'm going to do cap sleeves or whether I'm actually going to do slightly longer sleeves. I think I might get more wear out of this if it was kind of 3/4 sleeves, and so since I have still a full skein of yarn, plus this is a very light fingering weight. It is the 463 yards per ball. So I still have quite a bit left of these two balls of yarn. And so I really think that I could do some more sleeves. I just have to kind of look at how the sleeves are constructed. The Ripple crop top actually does have fairly large armholes, and so I am modifying that a little bit, and I will talk more about that when I finish it. But it's super fun, it's bright, I really like it as a kind of a summery top, and it is so soft with this merino cashmere nylon. I just love working on this because I love feeling the yarn. So that is what I'm working on. I think the camera's blowing it out some. I also realized, and it's funny, so down at the bottom, it looks like it's got lots and lots of purple, and then as I move up more, it looks like it has petered out a little bit. Like there's still some, but not as much as at the bottom. And part of that is also that where I split, I'm doing, when I was working in the round, I was doing one row and then switching balls each row, and then up at the top, I'm switching every 2 rows. So it is changing just a little bit, but I don't mind because I don't think it's pooling badly. And you can just see that there are whiter spots and darker spots, but that's actually the way the yarn is as well. So I am very excited about this, and this will still get quite a bit of time this week. I don't know why, I just all of a sudden decided I wanted to go back to this one and finish it, so I'm hoping that that will last me through finishing it. So that is a work in progress. My other work in progress is also a sweater. It is The Weekender by Andrea Mallory, who is Drea Renee Knits. And again, I am knitting this one out of some yarn I bought at Rhinebeck several years ago. It actually has been a previous sweater, and I decided to rip it out because I wasn't enjoying the sweater and turn it into a sweater I hopefully will love. I worked on this one this week, and I'm getting very close to where I can split for the armholes. The last time I checked, I was at like 10.5 or 11 inches, and I believe I have to be at 15, but of course this is kind of an Aran weight, and I'm knitting it on size 8 needles, and so it will go quickly. Part of the reason that I stalled on this one and picked up the fingering weight sweater is actually because I had some wrist pain this week, and I was trying to figure out whether it was because I was working the sweater in the round on the needles and it was starting to get heavy, or because I was having a little trouble with the cables. I find that my hands get tired when I work on short circulars, kind of in a small circumference. Definitely like the 16-inch needles that I work hats on. If I work on them too long, my hands kind of get stiff and sore, and so I have to be careful on how long I work on them, and particularly cables on those shorter needles. So I couldn't decide which it was that was giving me some wrist pain, so I finished the cabled hat, and then I put the Weekender aside for a couple days just to see if I could get that to resolve, and it seems like it has. So I will cautiously pick this up again. But again, this is The Weekender by Andrea Mallory. It is a pullover knit in reverse stockinette. However, oops, it looks like I dropped a couple stitches. However, she recommends you knit it inside out. Ooh, what have we, oh, that's fine. She recommends you knit it inside out so that you're basically knitting a stockinette all the way around. And I showed it to you last week. It does have one really nice detail, which is a slipped stitch up the middle of the front and back. So it's just got kind of it's a nice design detail. So this is where I'm at with my sweater currently. As you can see, that is the column of slipped stitches, and this is a beautiful yarn. It is a woolly yarn from Spirit Trail Fiberworks, which sadly is no longer in business. I had 2 large skeins, each of which were 600 yards in this crazy kind of bright blue colorway, and I've been calling it hydrangea just because that's what it reminds me of, but I absolutely love it. It's just really an arresting blue, and it's definitely got notes of purple in it. And I am pleased with my progress and hope that I will get to make more this week. I would love to get to the point where I have divided for the sleeves and start on the front and back, or sorry, divided for the front and back and started on that, and then I'll just have sleeves to go. So I should have enough yardage. I'm enjoying this knit. So this is one of the other things hopefully I'll work on a little bit this week, but I will have a new cast on this week. So this one may wait a little bit. I'm kind of trying to finish a lot of the works that I have in progress and not cast on too many things, although this week's cast on will be another sample, so that will definitely need to get cast on. So those are the 2 sweaters I am currently in progress on. Let's talk about what I'm going to cast on this week. Again, I know I sound like a broken record, but I knit a lot of samples for Zen Yarn Garden, and they are keeping me very busy right now, and I think I'm helping them sell some yarn, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed about that. But this week I am working with another one of their duos. These are also from the Met series. This is a Paul Gauguin painting inspired colorway. It is called Still Life with Teapot and Fruit, and here is the painting. that you can see, and you can also look that up online if you'd like. And here is their interpretation of it. So it's got navy and gold and a rusty orange and a caramel chocolatey brown. And it is a really pretty colorway, and that bright yellow is just gonna pop. I love that yellow and the yellow into orange. That is kind of making my heart sing. They have paired it with another skein that they call dark navy. So these are the two colorways that I will be working with this week. Again, this is on their superfine fingering base, 100% superwash merino. And the shawl that I am going to knit is a Brioche Shawl by Lavagna Patricella, and it is called Soul Queen, S-O-L like the sun, Queen, Q-U-E-E-N. And it is actually designed to be knit with one skein of regular fingering weight and then a contrasting texture yarn like a mohair. And it is a brioche shawl with some simple patterning. It actually calls for about 600 yards, 650. So it's not using the entire contrast skein. And I think what we're going to do is we are going to use the navy as the background skein and then use this as the kind of textured and colored pop skein, because all the brioche lines will stand out on there. So, and I think I'm not 100% sure, but I think because of the yardages used, this shawl is not actually reversible. It is brioche, I believe, but I don't think it's like two-color brioche 100% reversible, because again, it says to use like all of this color and only half of this color. So I am going to wind these up and cast that on this week, and I will have more to show you next week, I am sure. And I am hoping that bright orange and yellow really, really pop on the shawl. So I'm excited to see how that knits up. And like I said, I will definitely have something to show you on that next week. So let's talk about the final thing that's sort of on needles and hooks, and that is my crochet blanket. And I know many of you are probably tired of hearing me talk about this, but this is the Woodland Crochet Woodland Crochet Blanket by Lucy of Attic 24. It was a crochet along a couple years ago, and she had a specific kit designed for it that I am actually using in another blanket that you saw for a while. But this version I am knitting in rainbow colors, or crocheting in rainbow colors for my nephew Miles. And I am keeping on. I really need to have an end weaving in session, so maybe I will do that maybe at knit night this week when I'm sitting in front of the computer and talking with people, because weaving in ends is easy for that. I have progressed. I don't remember where I was when I last showed you. I think I was somewhere around the purple and working back out. As you can see, I have worked through the red, and now I am turned around and working through the red again, and I just finished kind of the yellow and went into this yellowy limey green, and now I am going to go back into the greens and blues and purples. This is getting huge. First of all, I laid it out on the floor to take a picture of it this week, and it is really wide. I'm very happy with it. It's definitely going to cover a twin size bed, and it is actually fairly long at this point. So we have several pattern repeats. We start at the red, go through the purple, through red, through purple, and to red again. I don't know how far I'm gonna go. I am probably gonna keep going until I'm fairly close to out of yarn, and until the blanket reaches its full length. My guess is a couple more pattern repeats, and then I will be done. It will be huge for Miles, who is only going to be 4 this fall, but my hope is that it will last him through you know, middle school, elementary school, middle school, high school, and maybe even off to college. I'll have to see, because they are kind of bright, crazy colors. But my sister thinks he's gonna love it. He is super into all kinds of bright colors and rainbows. And then I am going to trim the blanket in this middle red color here, which is garnet, and his favorite color is red. So I am hoping that that will make him super happy. I could not find a blanket all in reds, so I just decided to go with bright colors. I am working on this for the 100-day project, which is kind of an art challenge on Instagram. The purpose being do something for 100, work on some kind of artistic project, doesn't have to be knitting, for 100 days. I am trying to crochet a stripe a day. I will tell you that I'm not 100% consistent in that, and I do have quite a few days where I just pick it up and do 2 stripes. And I think today is actually a 2-stripe day because I did not get to it yesterday. But I am moving along apace, and my hope is to finish this by the end of June, and I don't see that as a problem based on how I am working so far. If I finish this before the end of June, that's great. I have another one, one for my sister, Roxy, so as soon as I finish this, I will pull out the kit and start on hers. But this is a ton of yarn, and I was also thinking about, and this is kind of neither here nor there, but also summer plans. So summer is approaching, and most summers I try and participate, even though I don't know that I've made it official the last couple summers, in Stash Dash, which is a sort of a contest against yourself to craft up as much yardage as you can during the summer. Stash Dash is hosted by Leslie and Laura of The Knit Girls, which is a great podcast if you're looking for something else to watch on YouTube. And Stash Dash was kind of the summer knitting and spinning summer fiber extravaganza. You can knit, you can spin, you can weave, you can finish projects, weave in ends, add button bands, etc. And it's to see how much yardage you can plow through in the summer. That begins this Friday, May 22nd, and I believe runs through roughly August 22nd. It kind of depends. It's based on what Laura's summer schedule is. She is a librarian at I believe a middle school. And so she, it might be no, I think it's middle. I don't remember. She is a librarian at a school, and so she bases it on her teacher summer schedule. So, I'm super excited because I was thinking about this the other day. This is a crap ton of yarn, and when I finish this, I will get to count the entire yardage towards Stash Dash. This is roughly 15 skeins of 240 or 50 yards a piece. So as much as I use, I will get to count towards Stash Dash. I think I'm going to kill it this year. Plus, I have my 2 sweaters, neither of which will be finished this week. So, yeah. Anyway. So that is what I'm working on. I probably won't bring this back for another few weeks. I like to mix it up at least a little bit and not show you the exact same thing every week, but I will continue to work on this blanket. And the really nice thing about it is that it is big enough now that I can work on it, and it is a blanket for my lap. So if I am chilly, I can basically put it over me and work on it. So, final thing to talk about is spinning. I did finish a spin this week. I did not start my next spin as I had talked to you last week, but I will show you this one. It is still a little bit wet. I finished a braid of Marin's pencils from Three Waters Farm. This is a superwash merino nylon braid. It's an 80-20 blend, and it was lots of dark purples and slates and then bright colors. And I spun it 2-ply. I did a fractal spin, which means half of it I tore into tiny strips having short color repeats, as you can see here, and half of it I spun straight through. The half that I spun straight through had far fewer of the rainbow colors and far more of the purples, so I really got a nice skein. I have a few sections where the colors lined up, as you can see, and then I have lots of sections of barber pole goodness where you have a bright color kind of toned down by the purple. Unfortunately, I had some snafus with the skein. I had some tangles. I have some weird little blips in it. So while I was originally going to put it in my shop, I think I'm not going to put it in my shop. I don't like selling things that aren't my best work. So I think I am going to keep this one, but I'm thinking about maybe making a pair of fraternal socks, or depending on the yardage, I might use it for a kind of cool shawl. I haven't decided yet. Right now it is just making me happy with all of that riotous color. It still needs to dry before I can do final measurements, but I suspect I got between 350 and 400 yards, which is great, and probably puts it at about a sport or fingering weight for my spinning. So I'm really pleased with this. As I said last week, my next spin is going to be some nestlets from Nest Fiber. Nestlets are little bits of leftover fiber. The bag that I showed you was 5 ounces. I actually have 2 of them. I haven't decided if I'm going to spin both of them right away or just one and see how far I get. I am looking for enough yardage to knit Passeggiata, which is a beautiful chevron scarf done lengthwise. It was originally designed by Tina Whitmore, who is the owner of Freya Fibers, and it was designed to be used with her gradient skeins, but I am going to spin small little nestlets and hope that that gives me a similar effect. I need close to 1,000 yards to knit that, so I don't know if I can get that out of 5 ounces and really end up at a fingering weight that I want to be at. So my plan is to spin the first bag as singles, see where I'm at, maybe even start knitting, and then I can finish up with the second bag if I'd like. The 2 bags were ordered at the same time, so they have lots of similar colorways, so I think that will tie that project together nicely. I also found a few other things in the spinning stash that I'm excited to spin for projects for. A gracious viewer sent me a pattern for my birthday, and I picked out some fiber that I would like to spin so I can knit that, because I saw a handspun version years ago and that was what made me fall in love with the pattern in the first place. So I have some ideas. I have more sweaters that I would like to knit. Oh, I know what I can talk about. One more thing, I know we're getting kind of long here, but I did take some classes at Vogue Knitting Live this past week, and I did say that I would talk to you about them, and it also relates to future knitting plans. So I took 2 classes this week, plus I watched the keynote delivered by Clara Parks. And Vogue Knitting Live went virtual this past week. It ran from May 11th through May 18th, and they offered classes and a virtual marketplace and some other events like knit nights and some interviews hosted by Christy Glass and a variety of things. And I think it was Vogue's way of sort of testing a new format. Unfortunately, I do believe that in the next couple years, until we sort of get a handle on coronavirus, a lot of our big events, places where lots of people gather, may not actually happen as they have in the past. And while there is no substitute for getting together with your knitting friends and getting to shop for beautiful yarns in person and take classes from wonderful teachers in person, I am pleased to see that Vogue was sort of attempting to do a virtual version. It would be really nice if there were some of these kinds of events that provide opportunities for vendors and teachers and ways to sort of bring us together even though we are still alone in our homes. So Clara's address was very nice. It was not as put together as a lot of the keynotes have been in the past, but I attribute that to sort of adjusting to a new medium, having people watching live, but no audience reaction, also having running commentary. I think that distracted her a little bit, but it was nice to hear her speak and to see her and to hear what she had to say, mostly what I've just said, which is that it's a nice opportunity to start to build some of these events out. Again, not that they are a direct replacement, but that they may have to be a stand-in for a little while. The first class that I took was actually, Vogue Knitting Live offered 2 kinds of classes that they deemed classes and lectures. Lectures were an hour. I believe the class sizes were slightly bigger, and it was more on general topics, and those were available for $19.99, or they had some bundles you could purchase. Classes were a 2 hours in length. They were $29.99, and I believe they delved more into projects and techniques. By the time I signed up, I sort of dithered a little bit about exactly what I wanted to sign up for and what I thought I would be available for, because unfortunately the classes were during work days for the most part. So if you were working during that time, it was hard to take time off. I'm a little bit lucky in that since I work in the fiber industry, taking time off for an hour class, as long as I don't have a meeting with a client, is something that I can do, because it sort of counts as work development or research. Anyway, so I took a class on Wednesday afternoon with Stephen B., who is Stephen Berg. He owns Stephen B. Yarn Shop, which is located in Minnesota. I think it's St. Paul, but it could be Minneapolis. I cannot remember. And Stephen B's class was about knitting faster. Basically the premise was that he likes to knit big chunky garments because they work up really fast, and he likes to combine all of his stash and fun yarns in fun ways. So basically his solution is that he gets bigger needles and holds multiple strands of different yarns together to create a lot of his projects. He showed us several of his different projects. Some of them are available as kits, and some of them were sort of patterns or general ideas. And his idea is that you should not be limited by having only a single skein of something in your stash. You should not be limited by colors or novelty yarns, or trying to worry about sweater patterns that have a very close fit. He was more for a free and inspired, just take your large needles, take all your yarns, put them together in interesting ways, and see what you can create. It was an inspiring talk. It was interesting to listen to him. I sort of knew who he was, although I have never taken a class with him, and I thought this was just a great opportunity to take a class with someone that I have not taken a class with, and who knows when I would get to. It is not a style of knitting that I generally participate in. You know that I don't knit huge bulky statement pieces, and if you are familiar with Stephen B., he is definitely a statement, but it was a fun class and kind of a different thing to do in the afternoon. Friday, I took a lecture that I was really excited about, and that was with Bristol Ivy. Bristol Ivy is a designer who has worked with a variety of design companies. She worked quite a bit with Brooklyn Tweed in the beginning. Recently, she has worked more with Pom Pom and as an independent designer. She has a few books out, and her lecture was really about her design process. And I found it fascinating. It showed me in some ways why I am not a designer. Partially because she is so curious about knitting and about shape and function and pushing the boundaries of what she can do with knitting. She talked about her inspiration and how she goes from sort of inspiration in images to taking what she knows about knitting and turning them into designs. So she showed us a lot of her designs, but what she showed us to start with were the images that inspired her, and walked us through kind of the process of how she thought about creating her designs, and then got to show us the final pattern. So it was really interesting seeing her process through things. She also talked to us about how sometimes she is driven by technique, and that is she finds a technique or something that she really wants to try in knitting, and she sort of starts with that without a plan in mind for what it is going to become, and she just works that technique to see if she can, and sometimes wonderful pieces result from that. Sometimes she doesn't find exactly what she's looking for, but then at least she understands how that technique works and some of the properties and what kind of fabrics and shapes that it produces, so she can use it in future designs. So that was super interesting. I really like her design sense. She likes to create elegant designs that are fairly simple but have interesting lines and technique usage. And I already had a couple of her patterns in my queue, but I admit after I saw her lecture, I went ahead and bought her book. So that is it is 2 books. The first one is called Thinking Outside the Box, and then the second one is also called Thinking Outside the Box, but the subtitle is Drape and Fold. I ordered the first book. There are several patterns in there that I think I could knit, including a sweater pattern. I actually have one of her sweater patterns in my queue. I'm not sure if I have already purchased the pattern, but it's definitely in my queue, and I have some yarn that I think would work for it. So I think maybe once I finish some of my current sweater projects, that might be my next cast on, but I will also share the book with you when it arrives. I have to say that that was a really inspiring lecture. And I have to say that the format worked really well for her. I will say that I this is a brand new world of taking classes virtual. And my only minor complaint, and it really is a minor complaint, and I think this is just something that this was the first of its kind, so people are getting used to it. My only minor complaint is that I found both Clara's address and Stephen B's class to be a little frenetic. They were still getting used to the technology and sort of how to... So there are a lot of different ways to perform with technology. For instance, podcasting, I think at some level, it is a skill that you need to learn. Having a conversation with a camera that does not talk back, while still keeping in mind that you have an audience and they are going to leave comments, and sometimes they are going to respond in ways that you least expect. There is a level of comfort in trying to get comfortable in front of a camera and essentially talking to no one and talking to everyone. When you add in live performances or Zoom rooms or whatever, you also have running commentary and questions to contend with. And it can be really, really distracting. I have found it distracting in trying to do lives on like Instagram or Facebook. And I know that it can be distracting. And for instance, Bristol Ivy specifically said, I will be distracted by the chat. So ask all your questions in there, but I'm going to minimize it until the last 5 or 10 minutes of class. And then I will look at them and answer them. And she did. And I just wanted to sort of give props to her and say that I really enjoyed her class because she was fairly comfortable with the technology and the format. And I just think that went a long way to making the class really, really smooth. And I considered it like definitely a class that I would take at a convention. And if I had the opportunity to see her speak again or work in a technique class with her, I would totally take it again. So we are now 40 minutes in, which is the longest podcast I've given in a while, and it is time for me to skedaddle and let you go as well. Again, I wish nothing for you but health and happiness and good thoughts for the days and weeks to come. And thank you again for joining me today. I am so happy to have you here. I hope that in some small way I'm keeping you entertained during everything that's going on. You are definitely keeping me motivated to continue working on my knits so I have nice things to show you every week. I will say at the end of my episode, as I always do, happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.